Welcome to Daniel's Inferno. My name is Daniel, and I think we've entered Clown World Canada, is what we should call ourselves. Today we are going to talk about a bit of ridiculousness that's going on in Canada today. On my screen, you'll see that doctors in Canada are now thinking that people who lack English should have access to interpreters. Let me just stop before we go through the article and say that that's one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard. I'm a firm believer of ensuring people have at least a basic understanding before allowing them into the country. I have family members who emigrated from Germany in the 50s. And let me tell you, the father of the household ensured that he could speak English, and he went right into the society, into Canadian society and culture, and immersed himself as much as he could. And soon it was a bilingual house that was speaking both English and German. And I have no problem with people keeping their original language, but when you move somewhere that has a different main language than what you speak, how can you how is I'm lost for words. It's just how is it all right that there's going to be this much confusion? I mean, when you go to a store, when doctors are dealing with patients, as you see here, when police officers are trying to deal with individuals, when government offices are dealing with individuals, when the general public deals with people, all of whom don't speak proper English or understand it, causes confusion, it causes tension, it causes consternation, and that is a fact. So, this article goes through an individual who, in BC, was having issues communicating with a doctor. We saw that if you had heart failure and limited English proficiency, you were more likely to come back to the emerge room to be reassessed in 30 days after you were discharged, said an assistant professor at U of T, University of Toronto's Department of Medicine, and a staff physician at the University Health Network, which includes the two hospitals. These health networks in Canada are actually very tight. They're they're very corporate, but they're very well run. And I know that because I personally dealt with a specific health network, and it went fairly well. For those with pneumonia or hip fracture, the data showed no difference in return to hospital regardless of the patient's ability to speak English. Our thinking is that those are acute conditions that have a pretty standard treatment, whether it be surgery and then rehab, or a course of antibiotics, whereas the two chronic conditions require a lot of patient-centered counseling and patient management plans. Many illnesses require the person who is sick, whether it be a mental, physical, psychological illness, many illnesses require people to take charge of their own rehab, of their own schedules in terms of whatever your therapy might be. If you're given stretches for rehabilitation, it's up to, these things are up to the patient. You can't force a person to do something. It's up to you to do it. Have initiative, and that goes with speaking English. If you're coming to a country that speaks English, have the initiative to learn the language. I can't believe this is such a hard concept for people. I personally would never ever imagine moving to a country without having at least a basic understanding of the language first. I'm not expecting people to be fluent. I'm not expecting perfection, but I am expecting effort and an understanding between people. If that understanding is cut, there's a big problem. And I personally believe that it's that cut in communication causes a lot of cultural strife and a lot of strife between people. So this isn't the only thing going on today in Canada. We also have, for everybody's amusement, give me a minute here, I'll get it up. There are high levels of lead found in water at Canadian daycares and schools. You know, seeing as Justin Trudeau is our Prime Minister, I never would have expected this. He's so environmentally friendly. He's so about making sure the earth is clean and purifying our water, and he made a big stink about water back in 2015 before he got elected. It was part of his big election platform that he was going to set up this water council in Canada to ensure water safety for Canadians for like the next 50 to 100 years. Not going too well now, is it, Justin? Let's go through this. A new study has found that some Canadian cities have higher levels of lead in their drinking water than Flint, Michigan, which has become synonymous with contaminated water. Let me just say, and I will find the link and post it in the description, there's a video of people lighting their water on fire. That's right, water on fire. Turning a tap on, click, and it's just like a frickin' fire-breathing dragon. So, welcome to Canada, where people won't speak English and our water is contaminated. About 1/3 of tests exceeded the Canadian guidelines for 5 parts per billion, with some of the highest levels recorded in Montreal, Regina, and Prince Rupert, BC. Prolonged exposure to high amounts of lead over months or years can result in lead poisoning, which can cause serious health effects, particularly among young children. It's also ironic that Montreal is one of the most affected places, since Justin Trudeau, his original riding when he was an MP, is Montreal. He was born and raised in Quebec, the province of Quebec. Not too much sympathy for your fellow Quebecois now, eh, Justin? This is, right after the election, we had things like Wexit and Wexit Alberta, Wexit Saskatchewan trending. These provinces that voted totally conservative or Tory, and they feel like they have no representation. A lot of liberals or far left activists in Canada were actually blaming these people of just having anti-Trudeau sentiment, and there was definitely a measure of anti-Trudeau sentiment. However, there is also legitimate concerns. There are people losing their jobs, people losing their homes, people unable to feed their kids. I find it very ironic that the left used to be categorized by compassion and, all this kind of more hippie, help our fellow man type of stuff. And when people are struggling, they now blame them of just complaining. And again, there were definitely people complaining, but I would say quite a large majority of the people feeling that sentiment, it's not just, oh, I hate the Liberals, I hate Trudeau. It's, we're losing our homes, we're losing our family safety, we can't feed our families. And it was the same type of fears that people felt in America, and that's why Trump was brought in. And he's been fixing those things. Maybe he can take a look what's going on over here and give Justin a good slap on the face and teach him a lesson or two, because Justin's not getting the job done. In fact, I'd actually say he's doing a terrible job. I'm Daniel Inferno. Thank you very much for watching.